Good evening. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Never seen this side of you guys before.
Good evening and welcome to the Board of Trustees meeting for the School Town of Speedway for July 9th, 2019. We are working from a 9-item agenda tonight, and the first item is to approve the minutes of the June 11th, 2019 meeting.
Mr. President, I recommend to approve the minutes of the June 11th, 2019 meeting.
Trustee Ghosty?
Except Lynn.
You need a motion, a second for the board.
Does
Laura.
it just go to 2 board members, or do we?
What would you like?
Laura.
I have to sign.
Can you do that?
Yeah, I think we have to have a board member first and second.
Yeah.
So board member first for Laura,
Laura's-
and then I'll second.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sorry.
No problem.
I'll make sure I sign the right spot.
Glasses, thanks.
Bad tonight.
Sounding good. Great. Item number 2, present the ISBA draft policies.
Thank you, Mr. President. Each year, we present the ISBA draft policies, and enclosed you'll see a list from the ISBA, which is the Indiana School Boards Association. This year, there's 4 that Mr. Disney will briefly talk about. I'd like to remind everybody, last year we had about 2.5 pages of these, so this year just having 4 is a good sight for us. But Mr. Disney, can you talk about each one of these briefly, please?
The first one's a teacher appreciation grant, and it's just the board must annually adopt a policy on how we choose to spend the teacher appreciation grants, the difference between highly effective and effective. The policy that we have, would recommend that we keep. The second one is on criminal history, and it's just actually, we're currently doing that, but now it's policy, and that is for volunteer coaches, a volunteer coach, we would go through a criminal history check before that volunteer coach would be able to participate in any type of activity, including practices or games. We currently do that anyway, but it hasn't been, now it's part of a policy. The third one has to do school employee students. If you remember a few years ago, the General Assembly said that if a school employee's child could come to that school tuition-free. There's been an addendum to this, and that is that the school employee needs to make a minimum of $8,000 to meet that tuition-free category. I think the purpose of that one is to keep people that work part-time for the school to bring their students if they don't live in the school district. And the fourth one is about the homeless students, the policies that we have on homeless students, and the Indiana Code and the McKinney-Vento Act did not coincide, so the new homeless policy brings those two together. It really defines what the role of a unaccompanied youth is, also the role of the homeless liaison for the school corporation. So those are a briefing of those 4 policies. We can look over those and bring them back to the next meeting to vote on those, if that's what the board so desires.
Laura?
I'm going to move that we adopt the policies with some minor technical drafting changes, no substantive drafting changes, just as a result of some kind of grammar, punctuation sorts of changes.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Bill. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? No? All those in favor? Opposed? Passes 4-0. Item number 3, approve the application for federal Title I program.
The recommendation is to approve the application for the school corporation in the federal Title I program. Andrea McIntosh does a tremendous job on this and puts a lot of work in this, and each year she applies. And that's what this recommendation is for, that we can apply for this Federal I title money. The money's roughly around $443,000 that pays for our instructional leaders, other type of assistance through all the elementaries. The majority of the funding, again, with a slight increase from the state, we'll have some slight increase in our revenue also. So my recommendation is approve the application for the federal Title I program.
I'll make a motion to approve the application for the federal Title I program.
Thank you, Debbie.
I'll second.
Thank you, Bill. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Passes 4-0. Item number 4, the 2020 budget assumptions.
The 2020 budget assumptions is pretty simple at this point in time, except it's going to get to a point to where next month we'll bring the budget to the board for your approval on this. And at that time, after the approval of that part, it's going to go to the town. So we're on about a two-month window here. We've been working on this in the last month also, but it's pretty simple. We believe in great teachers. We believe in small class sizes, and we believe that those variables there make a difference in the classroom. So when we're designing and we're figuring out what's important for our budget, the assumptions are the different variables. Number one, it really is a state tuition on the amount of money that we receive from the state. This last year through legislation, Speedway schools at 2.8% increase is going to be one of the lowest ones you see around the county and the suburbs. You'll see other schools at 6, 7, 8% of new money. Speedway schools is going to be about 2.8% increase. That's something to note. That's also something about $311,000 that's going to be new money that we've been working with the Teachers Association. We're going to continue working with them, that we're going to try to do everything we can to ensure that we use that money that goes in front of a student, which means the teacher, the assistants, and the people in front of our kids overall. The other variables, so the state tuition is the first one I want to bring to your attention when we're doing assumptions, because we want to maintain a balanced budget and maintain our cash balance. Those are the two main assumptions that we want to make sure we hit. The other ones is insurance. And after talking to many people throughout the state, I think we know our insurance is solid. We also have been meeting with Mr. Boss with our group to see where we are at with our claims, and I'm proud to say that right now we predict 2 to 4% increase versus other people in the state, 8 to plus 10 plus. That's just tremendous. Our insurance right now with our claims to this point in time is looking at possibly a 2% increase, and that's about it. Last year we were at 0, flat line. This year at 2%. 2 years in a row with those claims. We're pretty proud of that one. So that's the second variable with the insurance. The third one, when we're designing the budget, it really comes down to the ADM, or the amount of kids that are going to walk through the door, their noses in the door, and that's the amount, each kid, we get a certain amount of money from the state to drive that state tuition. And for the left, if you go back 4 years, we increased the first 3 years of that, and we decreased slightly last year. And that's significant when you're trying to build a budget and there's not as many kids as what we had the year before. We do believe, we feel confident that we'll be well over 1,800 this year, hopefully around 1,820, and that's just, we're going to use the best prediction and educated guess that we can use from past practiced to see what we're going to drive that from. So our general budget, which is called the education fund, those are the different variables that we tie everything together, and that's what we're working on right now. The operations fund, I'm going to talk later about the capital assets plan. That will describe that and further. But again, we're going to, the budget will be deficit or dedicated specific funds. Technology personnel will offer flexibility in the staffing for 2020. And again, a balanced budget's key. The referendum fund, the rate of the referendum fund will remain very stable to where we are as of this last year. And it's something to take note that as we are going to have a close eye on Newbie Elementary and their enrollment, that we can use the referendum fund and parts of that to make sure that we might have possible construction in the future, and we can also use that fund for that. The total tax rate will possibly increase slightly. The rate in 2019 was artificially low because of the return of the 17 excessive levies. In the bigger picture, we believe that, our school tax rate, the more stable it is, the better their impact on the tax caps affecting the units of local government. So we all work together in our local government that we want to be good partners with them and keep the tax rate as low as possible. So that is the assumptions for the 2020 budget as we build it. Today we were building it, so.
Great. Any thoughts or questions from the group? There's nothing to take action on at this time, but. Okay, great, thank you. Item number 5, authorize the publication of the 2020 capital assets plan.
The 2020 Capital Assets Plan last year, 2 years ago, was called the Capital Projects Fund. That's moved to the Capital Asset Plan, and the big 3 line items to remember on this is there's some new requirements, and the new requirements are, number 1, we have to share with any projects that we're going to do in the next year that are $10,000 or more. We have to predict what's going to break or what's going to be new. In my experience in the last 2 years, I have to predict which water heaters are going to go out or chillers that may go out or roofs. And our guys, our maintenance and custodian, they do a phenomenal job, but we have a lot of buildings that are getting to that age of a lot of things breaking down. In the capital asset plan, that's where we have money to do the maintenance and equipment, and we do have money for those things, but when we have 3 water heaters that go down in 3 different buildings all in 2 weeks, that's something that's not necessarily predicted it's going to happen. But what do? Our kids deserve hot water, our teachers deserve hot water, our people deserve it, so we fix them. And that's why we do have the money that's designed in this. Projects over $10,000, purchases over $10,000, as you can see, very conservative on this list of things that we've done the last few years. And I'll tell those in details in a second. So those are kind of the new requirements. Projects of $10,000, the purchases of $10,000, and it has to be projected out 2 years plus. So what we did this year in the projects, this is what we get from this. Number 1, we did security doors at Wheeler, which are completed, and Allison. That was the start of our security parade, if you will, for what we're trying to do to upgrade our security. So for the next year, we're looking at Newbie Elementary, and we're kind of sitting tight just to see what that enrollment is in August before we make major decisions on changing, because we don't want to change the doors if we're going to add classrooms, possibly, if the enrollment spikes. So that's the first thing. The other one in Allison, 2 years ago, we added a chiller. It's up and running. We just completed, and by the way, that was done in 4 days for the new chiller at Allison. I believe Wheeler was done in 3 days, up and running. It was seamless. Again, we had a lot of people working on that. So we have 2 chillers that are completed at 2 elementaries, and we have Newbie next. And that's what we're looking at doing for the next year to complete. These chillers run from 25 years 30 years. We hope that we can get through that long with those new air conditioner services. So those are the things we do in the capital assets plan. And my recommendation is to, my recommendation is to authorize publication of the 2020 capital asset plan.
I move we authorize publication of the 2020 capital assets plan.
Thank you, Bill.
Second.
Thank you, Laura. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Passes 4-0. Item number 6, acknowledgement of grants received.
Mr. President, I recommend that we accept $181,254.88 with the grants received and gifts.
Thank you.
Should do that.
We will take that. Item number 7, the personnel report.
Personnel report this month has 5 items on it. We had a resignation of a teacher over the July 4th week. Christy Canis, who's a third-grade teacher at Wheeler Elementary School. Pam Dickerson, who is a custodian at Wheeler. And then we have hired Brian Passwater, or recommended we hire Brian Passwater, who is going to be a math teacher at the high school. He's going to teach calculus for us. Rebecca Dema is going to come back and be a custodian for us. And then Shelby Sesnick, who was our junior high cheerleading sponsor, is going to go to the high school as the assistant cheerleading coach. So I would ask that you approve the personnel report as presented.
Mr. President, I'll move that we accept the personnel report as presented.
Thank you. So, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Passes 4-0. Item number 8, recognition of visitors and other business. Any other business? All right. Well, then we will adjourn to approve claims. Thank you very much.